history topic, the age of industrialization. Students, in the last videos, we have already discussed about Gumesthans. Students, you know that Gumesthans are the paid servants appointed by the company to supervise the production, collect the supply and make the production, and that supply should reach to the East Indian Company official so that can be exported to the England. So students, now we are going to see what would be the condition of the weavers, and we have seen earlier that the condition of the weavers was really not very good because they were taking the advances from the Gumesthans, but later on they refused to accept the loan or the advances provided by the Gumesthans. Now students, we are going to see that how the people and the production was affected. See students, here the name Manchester that is given, Manchester has come to India. Manchester is a important city where the maximum textile mills is there in Britain. So students, how the Manchester is going to come to India, that we people are going to discuss now. So students, now when we are talking about the Manchester coming to India, see student, there is a person called Henry Patoulu. He came and ventured around in different parts of the area. He roamed around and made a survey in different parts of the areas. And later on, he has wrote that the cotton that is manufactured in India, that kind of cotton cannot be manufactured, is not manufactured by any of the countries. The quality, the patterns and the stuff and the way of weaving and spinning that is done in India, that kind of same conditions and the quality refinement cannot be seen in other form of the cottons that is made or manufactured in any of the country. That means the India used to produce the refined cotton. We have seen that students, Henry Patoulu came in 1772 and he was the company official, and he came and surveyed in different weavers' houses and the other people spinning quality he has checked, and then he said that quality of the cotton cannot be met as with India. No country can meet that quality that India is manufacturing. In the 19th century, we have seen that textile export from India started declining. The export from India started declining. We have seen that if you are going to see the figures, in 1811, the quality and the cotton that was exported, that accounted for 33% in this year. After few years, you can see that in 50-51, the amount of cotton that we used to supply to the other countries, we used to export to the other countries, in 1850-51, it has reduced to 3%. That means the production was made in the country, but now the production and the control of that was not in our hand. It was in the hands of the East India Company. So you can imagine, from 33%, it has reduced to just 3% of the cotton that is exported. Now, why did this happen? What is the reason behind it? That why we were producing the as much as cotton for different countries were exported, and supply was made to many of the European countries, Armenian countries, Persian countries, to the Gulf countries and to the Southeast Asian countries. What happened that the production has declined, and that is the most important reason that we need to look into it. See students, there is a reason behind that industrial group begin worrying about. During that time we have seen that the production that we used to send it and we used to export it to the other countries, that has declined. Why? Because the industrialization has already taken place there, and they have so many industries were set up for the textile, for the production of the textile, and those countries, they have also started manufacturing the cotton, different textiles. So when they have started manufacturing the textiles, then there would be a problem. If we people are going to sell and we are going to export Indian textile there, then the textile that is produced by the local people of that Britain or the other country, that is will not be sold, because they are not meeting that refinement that is made by the Indian people. So there was a great problem. So the people or the manufacturers in Britain, they were very much worried about the export from the India. Textile exported to India. So why? Because the people were very much used to, were in habit of using the Indian textile. And the quality of the textile that we people have, there is no comparison of Indian textile. Nobody can meet that requirement, or it may be made by the machine or by anybody. But the quality that is made by the Indian people, that stuff or that patterns or designs cannot meet, that cannot be fulfilled by the Britain manufacturers, weavers. So we have seen that the people, manufacturers, they were very much worried about, the export that comes from India. That means India is exporting and those countries are importing. India is exporting and those countries, that means they were worried about the import. They were worried about the import in England of the textiles. Not only that, we have seen students, they have asked their government, the people living in Britain, weavers or industrialists, factory owners, they have asked the government, they have appealed to the government, they have pressurized the government that the import should be stopped. Indian import of textile should be stopped and Indian clothes should not come to Britain market. See, if Indian cloth would come to the Britain market, definitely if it is available, people would buy it. And the traders and merchant shopkeepers, they are going to sell it also. But what would be the loss? The industrialists, those who have manufactured the cloth, what would happen with that cloth? They will not be able to, people are not going to purchase it, and the shopkeeper will also not buy it. So what would be, they had a great problem that the production made by the industrialist, what they are going to do with that production? They have already invested so much of money. So the people as well as industrialists, they have started pressurizing their government that the Indian clothes should not be imported in their country, should not be imported in their country. Not only that, at the same time, we have seen that the import of the Indian clothes should not come to the Britain. Indian clothes should not come to the Britain. And what the other thing they have expected from the government of the East India Company, they have said and requested their government, Britain government, the British traders and industrialists and factory owners who were manufacturing the cloth in Manchester. Manchester is a place where most of the industries are there. They used to textile. It is famous for the textile industries. So the manufacturers have requested their government that whatever they are producing, okay, that should be sell it in India. Their production should be sell it in India. What they are expecting, Indian clothes should not be sold. We are not going to sell, and it should not come in India. Okay, Indian clothes should not come in India. Whereas the Britain made cloth should go and should be sold in Indian market. So that means the double-sided profit they expected, that Indian clothes should not reach to the Britain market. Number two, the Britain made cloth, Manchester made cloth should come in the Indian market. Fine. So that they can flourish their business, their industry will run. So their government has really thought of the needs of the people and the request and the plea of the people, and they have decided that the export, the Manchester made cloth will come in India and will be sold in Indian market. So you can imagine in 1850-51 the production, the value of Indian import, you can see that has come to India. How much? 31%. 31% of the production value worth rupees in 1850-51 it came. That means Britain made cloth. 31% of the Britain cloth came in India. Okay. And after that we have seen that after few years, few decades, you can see that this percentage has increased. That means 50% of the cloth that is sold in Indian market, that was Britain made cloth. That means Manchester cloth. So Manchester cloth was started selling in the Indian market. That means Indian market was flooded with the Manchester cloth. So that means Manchester made in Manchester. Manchester made cloth has started flooding the Indian market, and this is a machine made product. Machine made cloth has started selling in the Indian market. So students, we have seen that due to this, we have already discussed this, how Henry Petolu, he has came, he was a British official. Indian textile, its market cannot be reduced, so they have opted that Indian clothes should not reach, whereas Manchester clothes should come, and declined from 33% of the export has reduced to 3%, and Manchester import has come to India, and almost the Indian market was flooded with it. And during this time, students, we have seen that who are going to face the problems. Now we have seen that Indian cloth is not exported. Okay, Indian cloth is not exported, whereas the Britain made cloth has come to India. Britain made cloth has come to India. Fine. That means the weavers, they are, if they would have, they have made the cloth, but it is not selling in the market where they are going to sell it. Why? Because the weavers market is collapsed. The Manchester has collapsed the market. The export market that they used to do earlier, now that export is not taking place. Number two, local market has also reduced. Local market has also reduced because it was flooded with, local market is flooded with the Manchester cloth. Now Manchester cloth is available in all the shops, in all the shopkeepers, and everybody is buying it and they are purchasing it. So it was, that means why the people are purchasing the machine made cloth. It was machine made cloth. Why? It is made up with the machine. So the prices of the machine made cloth is cheaper than the handmade clothes. Weaving is done with the hand and too much of the labor is required and too much of the time consuming is also there. So the weavers, they expect to have a to get the sell it at a higher prices. So that because the entire family is involved in making it and the less length of the cloth is made in a period of time, whereas machine can made hundreds and thousands of meter cloth in that same duration. So that means the price of the machine made cloth was cheaper. And in India, the economic condition of the people was not very good. Everybody was not able to buy the handmade clothes because it is really very expensive. And so people, even the poorer section of the people, they used to spend very less money on the, because of they spend more of the money on the on consumable goods, and the very less money is left with them. Their economic condition is not as strong, so they can go with the handmade cloth or a quality cloth or a very fine quality cloth. So they have started purchasing the machine made cloth. So machine made cloth was really used by the people living in the country. So imported cotton goods were so cheap that the product could not compete with them. Their prices, Indian prices, cannot compete with the machine made prices. They were extremely cheaper and at a very low prices the things are made available to them. See students, by 1850s we have seen that almost the export was totally declined, it totally collapsed, and the Manchester goods was flooded into the market and people have started using also. And by 1860s students, there was another important problem was arose by the people. People in India were facing, weavers and spinners, they were facing the another problem. What was that problem? See students, earlier people used to manufacture their textile, used to make their clothes, and they wanted to sell it to the other countries. Now to manufacture the cloth they need a cotton. Now cotton, that raw cotton was also not available in the market. Why? Because the entire cotton was produced in India was drained to England, was supplied to England. That means the cotton is supplied raw, see finished product, that means ready-made cloth is not exported to the country, to the Britain. The raw cotton is exported so that the industries in Britain can take that cotton and they can manufacture it and then they can sell that Manchester product or cloth in India. So raw cotton at a very cheap prices, they are purchased from the farmers, it was drained to, it was sent and exported to the Britain, Indian industry, the Britain industry. Their raw material was less because there so many industries grew up like mushrooms. So those industries, they needed raw material is required, and in their own country they cannot meet the requirement. So from India the cotton was sent, was exported. And after using that cotton, they used to sell the finished product at a higher prices. They purchase at a low price cotton and they send it, and they sell a higher price cloth in India. So this was the another problem that was faced by the manufacturers or by the weavers. Raw cotton, of quality of the cotton, buying the raw cotton was exorbitant prices, at a very exorbitant prices, at a very low prices. The British company, East India Company used to buy, and they used to sell it to send it to the Britain. And this has weaving condition became very poor, and now weavers are not having cotton available. When cotton would not be there, what they are going to manufacture? Whatever they were manufacturing, maybe a less length of the cloth, but at least they were surviving by manufacturing something and selling to somebody. Personally, they were selling to somebody cloth, ready-made cloth. They were selling it to. Now, but when cotton would not be there, what they would be doing it? How they will survive? The work that they used to do, that was only the weaving. There is no other occupation that they were knowing. If cotton would not be there, then their situation would really become worse. So students, see, during this time, we have seen that during 1860s time, the quality and the supply of the cotton was reduced, and there was an American war was also going on. American Civil War was also broke out during this particular time, and the cotton supplies that used to come from America to the Britain, that has also reduced. That has also reduced. Now when it is reduced, now the Britain people, they have started looking towards to the India only. That now from America the raw cotton is not coming, so they wanted that almost whatever industries they have, that should be fed by the cotton, and that cotton should reach to from India. That cotton should reach to Britain and from in India. So the raw cotton exported from India at a very low prices, and due to that there was a great shortage, extreme shortage of the cotton in India, and Indian weavers, Indian factories in India began to production, flooding the market with the machine-made goods. How these weavers would survive? This became really very problematic for the people to survive. See students, weavers and the craft people, they really faced too much of the problems, and this was the time when many of few factories in India began production and flooding the market with the machine-made goods. See, problems faced by the weavers. Problems faced by the weavers. Export has increased. The prices of the raw cotton has also increased. And weavers were unable to starve. They are starving. They cannot survive. Hungry. They are hungry. And they were unable to earn money. They used to buy raw cotton at a very exorbitant prices. And at the end of the 19th century, factories in India began production, flooding. Factories come up. You can see that the another new topic that you people have in front of you, that is factories came up. See students, when we are talking about the factories came up, we have seen that different in India also, many of the traders and merchants and entrepreneurs, they have set up the industries. They knew that the economic condition of the weavers are getting worse day by day, and Britain, too much of the industrialization has taken place in Britain. So there were few industrialists, they have money and they wanted to set up the few industries in India also, so that we can also make the machine-made cloth in India. So students, we have seen that the first cotton mill in Bombay came up in 1854. And we have seen that there are four other mills also came up during that time in 1862, and how many spindles were there used? You can see that looms were using it. 94,000 spindles were used, and how many looms were there? You know, power loom, which is run with the machine. Looms where on which we device on which we make the weave the clothes. So these are looms, and there were 94,000 of spindles were there during that time, and we have seen that there were 2,150 looms were there. So students, there were few jute mill also came up. When we are talking about the jute mills, by 1855, first jute mills came up in Bengal. In 1855, jute mill came, and in Kanpur also another industry was also set up, another factory was also set up, that was the Elgin mill. In Kanpur, Elgin mill in 1860s. In 1860s, the Elgin mill was set up. And in 1861, first cotton mill in Ahmedabad. First cotton mill in Ahmedabad was also set up. And by 1874, first spinning and weaving mills were set up in Madras, and the production was started. These are the different factories that came up during those days time. So students, who all are those people who have set up the industries? Earlier they have not set up these industries, now they have set up the industries. So there are some people who have set up the industries. So though these people are the big businessmen, entrepreneurs. So we'll see who all are the early entrepreneurs who have started and who have set up these businesses. You can see that Dwarkanath Tagore, Deanshaw Patet, Jamshedji Nasarwan Tata, and Seth Hukumjal. Most important, these are the most prominent early entrepreneurs who have set up the industries. See students, when we talk about the from where they have got this money, from where they have accumulated the money, they see these people, they were engaged with the overseas trade, trading with the China, trading with the other countries, Silk Route. If you remember Silk Route, they used to do trade with the different countries. And there were some financiers were also there. They had some financial houses were also there. Some few people were bankers were also there. So they have accumulated lot of the money. They have collected. They had lot of money. Now they wanted to invest that money for countries' development and for setting up the industries. And we have seen that we have many Indians who became junior players in this trade. They have provided the financing houses, they have procured the supplies, and they have collected done the export and import and consignments to different countries. And many of the businessmen have earned through the Silk Route, and their main vision, their main aim and objective was to develop the country. So they have decided that whatever money that they have collected till now, we are going to spend and we are going to set up an industry, so that because much industries were not there, so they wanted to set up these industries so that they can earn more of the benefit out of it. So students, you can see that we have a Tagore as an enterprises. His business was initially shrank because there are 4 mills were set up, and then again he went for a overseas trade, and his other partners, they were not able to take care of the business. And we have seen that in Bombay, Deanshaw Patet, you can see Deanshaw Patet, Jamshedji Nasarwan Tata, they both have built up a huge empire in the business and in India. And you already know Tatas and Birlas. You must have heard about Tatas, okay? And Aditya Birla, Idea, the one who have an Idea mobiles and all that brand, okay? So Deanshaw Patet and Jamshedji Nasarwan Tata, they have set up the different industry. If you have heard about the Jamshedji Nasarwan Tata, you must, if you remember Tisco, class 8, you have studied about the TISCO. First iron and steel industry in Jamshedpur was set up. So TISCO you have already studied. So we have seen that when Tagore has set up, Dwarkanath Tagore has established 6 joint stock companies by 1830s and 40s, but later on that business has declined, and when he went off for the overseas trade, and other people, they were not able to take care of the business properly, so that business shrank. But Jamshedji J.N. Tata and Deen Shaw Patel, they have set up a huge empire, very big empire of industries in India. There was another person, Seth Hukum Chand. He is a Marwadi businessman who have set up the jute mill in Calcutta in 1917. In 1917, he has set up the jute mill. And there is another important person, G.D. Birla. G.D. Birlas. They have also set up industries in India to develop the production and to develop the conditions of India to develop it, because these are the people who have accumulated the money by doing the trade with the different countries. And when we are talking about, they have earned that money with the different business, what all overseas business, by selling the silk, by selling the textile, by selling the spices and jewelries, taking from in India and selling in the other country, and bringing the goods from there and bringing here. And there are few people who are there who are working as a bankers, who used to give money on a rate of interest. And this is how these people, they have earned a huge money. And there were some people who were there who used to do business with the Burma country. Burma is a Myanmar. Now new name is Myanmar. Burma is an old name. So there were few businessmen were there who used to do the trade with the Burma, that country. And we have seen that some people, they had a very good links with the Southeast Asian countries, Middle East countries, and with the East Africa. There also there was a great trade was going on. And we have seen that many of the people, they were working as a banker, they were working as a hundis who used to supply the money. In India, we give a money cash here, and we go there in the other country. If we go to the Southeast Asian country, we wanted money there, because in ships you cannot carry huge money. Okay, many dacoits would be there. Sea dacoits are there who is going to loot up your money, who is going to snatch your money. So there, what these people, they used to do it, they deposit their money in India, and this much of the money, and that same amount of money worth rupees, they can purchase the goods from that country. Okay, so this is how they used to have a connections in the other countries, or a kind of a note or something. They used to write it that, okay, this much of the money is deposited with me, you can do that, or the number of the goods is sent it to. This is how the people used to work with the overseas trade and with the other people. So financing traders is also another important business opportunity. They have all these people, these bankers, they have also invested a lot of money in the setting up of the different factories. When the colonial rule was going on at this time, we have seen that many of the European countries, they wanted to stop the people. They were creating restrictions, and but these people, they were determined to start up that business. These people were busy with the, you can see that opium trade, and indigo was also there. The coffee or a tea plantation, they used to buy it from here and they sell it to the other country. So these people have really earned a huge money from the business by shipping business in India. So students, we can say that these people and early entrepreneurs have really earned good money. You can see that factories came up, early entrepreneurs, jute mill was set up, and they traded with the China. So his father as well as a grandfather were very famous industrialists like G.D. Birla. I have already talked to you about this. So students, we have seen that how they have accumulated money. We have already discussed that they used to deal with the goods to with the other countries and overseas trade with the Burma. They used to do it, and now we see that there were many hurdles were there. What all hurdles and the problems were there in the path of the Indian entrepreneurs. See students, during those days time, we have seen that the European managing agencies, different European managing agencies were controlling the entire business. European agencies were controlling the business in India. And when we are talking about these different agencies, three important agencies were there which are very famous during those days time, and these are Birds, Higglers and Company. Number 2, Andrew Yale. And number 3, Jardine Skinner and Company. So these agencies were regulating the entire business, all the industries, or controlling the manufacture, regulating the prices, controlling the competition, monopoly over the trade, and what all to be produced. These are the three important companies, European agencies. They were doing all the things. Now you can see that we have seen colonial control over the Indian trade was tightened up, and the space within which Indian merchants could function became increasingly very limited function they used to have, and they cannot do it. They were barred from trading with the Europe and manufacturing of goods. They were controlled. Why? And these agencies were controlling them, and they had to export mostly the raw material and the food grains. Finished product they cannot export. Only the raw material they can export, so that they earn low foreign exchange. And many agencies, they have mobilized the capital and they have set up the joint stock companies, and they used to manage them. European merchants and industrialists had their own chambers. They have their own chambers and commerce. They used to conduct the meetings. These the Europeans, they have their own offices. Chamber means they have their own offices, and they used to regulate all the things. And whenever meetings are there, the Indian traders and merchants, they were not called for the meeting. Whatever decisions are there, that was told to them. Now you have to do all these things. Now you need to do this. Now you can produce this. So that means their power was limited. They don't want that Indian industry should flourish. Indian people should become rich. This was the exorbitantly they wanted to regulate, and they wanted to restrict the people in that area. So students, now we need to see that the Chamber of Commerce were regulated by the European agencies. Now we'll see that when industries were set up by the industrialists, Seth Hukum Chand, Jamshedji Nasalman Tata, G.D. Birla, or Dwarkanath Tagore, when they have set up the industries, from where the workers would come, because the workers were not trained and they were not knowing how to work in the factories. Many of the people, they were busy and engaged with the spinning work and weaving work, and they were artisans only. So now we will see from where the workers will come from. See students, in 1901 we have seen that there were around 5,84,000 workers were there who were working in different factories. And when we see in 1946, this number has increased to 2,43,000. 24 lakh and 36,000. 24 lakh, earlier it was only 5 lakh, now it is 24 lakh 36,000 of the workers in 1946 they had. So that means there were so many numbers of the number of people who were there who were working. Okay. Now students, now the most important thing that is really need to see is from where these workers they come from. See, in most industrial region, workers they come from the district all around. If we say from where the workers they come from, definitely they are going to come from their surrounding areas, only from the villages or from the towns. Suppose if we are going to set up an industry in Bhiwani, from where the workers will come, they will come from the neighboring villages only, or neighboring towns. Small towns are there, wherever all those people who are living in the nearby area, they will come from that area. So definitely we have seen that peasants and artisans and workers who had no work, and as weaving was not there and spinning work was not going on, much of the textile mills are not there. So these people, they have started working, these weavers and spinners and artisans, they have started working in these industries because they have to earn a livelihood. They were in search of the work, because whatever dominant work or the hereditary work that they used to do earlier, now that work they are not doing it, because their cloth is not being sold. So because that becomes very expensive, because handmade cloth is expensive than the machine made cloth. So people are buying the machine made cloth because that is cheaper and it has become affordable. The condition of the people were very poor, and they need to survive, they need food, that is more priority. Buying a cloth, expensive cloth, they are not going to buy. Definitely to cover up their body, what they are going to buy, they are going to make the cheap cloth, and that cheap cloth is a machine made cloth that is been supplied by the men from the Manchester. So we have seen that most of the meal workers, they moved between the villages and the city, and they can go back during the harvest time also, and they don't have to travel a long distance, because in the nearby area the job opportunity is available, because the industries are there. So many of the people, when the suppose if we talk about in Kanpur, if the mill is set up, that is a united province, Kanpur was, and the Lucknow was the united provinces. So the people, they come from that part of area. If we are going to set up the industry in Bombay, the people are going to come from the region, from the nearby the Ratnagiri region, they will come and they are going to work it. If jute mill is going to set up in the Calcutta, then from an Hooghly region and from the Calcutta nearby areas, the people are going to move and they are going to work for the people. Now there is another important thing, that means from a neighboring area, especially from the neighboring areas, because they don't have to migrate, they don't have to travel far off places, because they need to reside also, they need to work every day, they cannot go and they come back. So they need to very easily, if they come from a nearby area, they can easily go back to their homes. See student, the another important thing that we need to come is jobber. Who is a jobber? The person who provide, the person who do a job, he would be a worker. The person who provide the job, jobber, the person who provides the job and makes an arrangement for your job, that is jobber. Okay, so students, you can see that we have a jobber here. You can see the picture of a jobber. Now see, to get the job in an industry, how will you get it? Because we know that there are so many people who are unemployed, who are not having a work. Everybody wanted to work. Everybody have lost their work. Whatever work they used to do, it spinning and weaving or poetry making or anything, whatever they were doing it, that work is not there. And everybody wanted to survive. Everybody wanted to earn a livelihood for their family, and they wanted to earn for their children. So everybody was ready to work. Okay. Now when the people are ready to work, students, opportunities are less, and the more of the population, opportunities are less, and more of the, comparatively the population is more to get, and the workers are more, abundant of labor is available. So all those people who have a contacts with, in relation, anybody who is already working in that industries, they're working in that industry. We have studied in Britain or in Europe, they are industry, all those people who have a relation with anybody, then they can easily get a work. Or sometimes it happen that I have a very far relation with that person, far relation. Okay, my mother's brothers, his son was his friend, and I am the friend of his. So this is how a long and far off relations may also work during that time. So the people have to make, sometimes it happens when you are not able to get the job, you have to prove yourself, you have to prove your honesty, you have to prove that you are loyal and you are very hard working. Not only that, you need to keep the jobber happy also. Sometimes it happens that if I wanted to get the job, so I am going to praise the jobber, I am going to give the gifts to the jobber, so that I can attract his mind, and I can read his mind, and in this mode, by providing him gift and by praising him, he can provide me the job. So during those days time, it has become very regular affair that everybody who wanted to, they started providing the gifts, and jobber has become a very important person during those days time, because the owner of the industry or the manager of that industry, he has a deep trust on the jobber. So jobber really played a very important role during those days time in providing the employment opportunity. Getting the job was always a difficult. The number seeking work were always more than the jobs available. Industrialist entry into the mill was also very much restricted. Nobody can easily get the job during those days. Industrialists usually employed a jobber to get new recruitments. New people are recruited, they are given the job, and for that a jobber is appointed, and that he can bring the workers from all his areas. So jobber is there. So everybody wanted to please the jobber to get the job. He got people from his villages. If I am from a Devsar, I go to a Devsar, and then I'll bring the workers from my village, so that whom I can trust, and I can employ those people, and I can take a guarantee also that these people are really good and they are really very loyal and very hardworking. So jobber ensure them jobs, help them settle in the city, and provided them money at the time of the crisis. So students, you can see that If we have set up in Bombay, then from a nearby area, Ratnagiri villages would come. If we have set up the industrial mill in the Kanpur, Elgin mill is set up in the industry. So from the nearby, within the district of the Kanpur, the workers would come from. If we have set up in the villages and nearby the city areas, they can easily go home and they can help at the harvest time also, and they can enjoy the festivals also. So industrialists usually employ a jobber to get a new recruitment, and very often the jobber was an old and very trusted person. He is very knowledgeable, experienced, and a very trusted person. He got people from his own villages, ensure them the jobs, and settle them in the city, all making arrangements where they are going to. Every day they cannot go back home, and as transport was not very easily available during those time, bullock carts or other things were there. So these kind of, and buses and train facilities were not there. So what they used to do is they have to be settled in the city, and they provided them money whenever whenever time of the crisis they wanted to buy the food or the clothing. At that time, jobber used to provide them money, and he began demanding. Sometimes it happens that, okay, I will provide the job to your son. Okay, I will provide the job to your son. Jobber is saying, I will provide the job to your son, but if this much of the money would be given, or this gift would be given, or this would be given to me. So when jobber's position became so important, and there are so many people coming and they wanted to recruit themselves in the job or in the industry, though many jobbers, they started demanding the gifts for his favors, and they have started controlling the life. If they don't favor them, then they can throw the person out also from the industry. So students, jobber really plays a very important role. You can see that how industries came up, how the different factories came up, who all are the new and early entrepreneur, from where they have earned money, how they have, what all industries they have set up, and from where the people they come from, workers, how the workers are hired, what would be their condition, who would be the person who is going to hire them. Fine. So students, till then, thank you so much.